Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Bhagavad Gita. We are on chapter 6, and today we'll be covering verses 33 to 47. We're going to start with two readings in English, followed by commentary by Yogeshwar, reading of Sanskrit and commentary. Then I will be reading Naneshwari. And then we will open it up for comments from people who are familiar with the work. And then we are going to open it up for questions. After we are done with 33 to 36, we will go from 37 to 47. And I think that's all we'll be able to cover today. So I'm hoping we will finish the chapter 6 today and start with chapter 7 next time. So Ambika, if you could go ahead and read 33 to 36, please.
Arjuna said, "This yoga, O Madhusudan, which has been declared by thee as by equality, I see not its stable foundation for reasons of restlessness. Restless indeed is the mind, O Krishna, and agitative, strong and obstinate. I deem its coercion as hard and difficult as that of the wind." The blessed Lord said, "No doubt, O Mahabahu, the mind is restless and incoercible, but, O Konteya, it comes into hold by non-attachment and practice. For him who is not self-controlled, this yoga is difficult to obtain. Such is my view. To the self-mastering man of endeavor, it is obtainable by appropriate efforts."
Thank you. David, do you also have Sri Aurobindo's translation or some other translation?
The Sri Aurobindo.
Sri Aurobindo. Then let's not read it. Ambika has read Sri Aurobindo's right now. We can go ahead with Yogeshwar. Yogeshwar, please go ahead.
Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya prokta samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvat sthitim sthiram. So Arjuna is asking, question. You have told me about yoga, yes, but I cannot see a stable foundation of that yoga because my mind is always dwelling on different things. Even in one moment to the next moment, my mind is never stable. So when you are talking about the stability of the mind, I cannot see that I will be able to do it. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. So my mind is really going from one thing to another. It has all these thoughts within it, and not just my mind changing from one day to the other, or my mind being different from one year to another, but one moment to another. Each and every moment, my thoughts are different and my feelings are different. So how can I, because my mind is always taking me towards different things. Pramati balavadridam. So my mind is the one who is in control right now and is taking me to different things at different moments in time. Tasyaham nigraham manye. So to control my mind, I feel manye. That means I feel that vayoriva sudushkaram. It is like controlling air. The way I cannot hold air in my hands, I cannot grasp it within my hands and then make it move. It's not in my hands. So even though I try to make a fist, it just gets out of my fist. So that's how the mind is. When I try to get control of my mind, it actually gets out of control. It gets more out of control. So that's how my mind is. And now you tell me how the yoga that you said, that is qualified, that is said to be of samatva, how should I get to it? When you say samatva and my mind is never in one thing at any one moment, it is moving through different things, it has different thoughts at different moments. I cannot see samatva in there, and I cannot see that my mind will be able to do yoga. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asanshayam Mahabaho Manodur Nigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate. So Krishna is saying here, normally they say that Krishna would have said, if this was wrong, Krishna would have said that, no, the mind is actually controllable. You should be able to control it. It's just easy. But here he's saying, Asanshayam Mahabaho, Mano Durnigraham Chalam, that what you have said is the most correct thing. And without doubt, yes, it is very hard to control. And it's always going from one thought to the other. That I really agree. That I agree. Now, parantu, that's the abhyasena tu. So, but abhyasena tu kaunteya, vairagyena chagriya. So, two things here. Abhyas means practice, and vairagya. So the same concept in Yoga Sutra. So the second is the definition of yoga. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. And then after that, how do you get the nirodha of the mind? How do you get control of the mind? So it says, abhyasa vairagyabhyam tan nirodha. So the same two things are given in the Yoga Sutra, abhyasa vairagyabhyam tan nirodha. So we can see that these two things are really important. Even in Gita, it's the same thing mentioned. Even in the Yoga Sutra, it's the same thing mentioned. So, abhyasa, practice. So one thing we need to know about practice is, we have all these concepts in our minds that this should happen, or this is the most optimum thing, or the most optimum feeling I should be having, or optimum flow of work that should be happening, but we never actually start practicing it. We always say, oh, I know what is supposed to be done, but you never do it. We always try to maybe do something very well, yeah? And like practice, probably if we say practice for an athletic, yeah? We know, they know that they're supposed to practice, but they also, sometimes they have this, that I've done a lot of practice now. Why practice again and again, every day, day in, day out? Should I have some rest? So your mind brings up all these different perspectives that should I have some rest or should I just continue? And then you have this doubt that should I do it or should I not do it? You know the optimum, but still you'll have this in your mind that should I or should I not? So abhyasa. Now, one thing, if I could say, is practice. It's like you can practice concentration, yes, but sometimes what happens with concentration, you can have full concentration when you are in one place where there's nobody and you're just alone, quiet in one room, and you can gain that concentration using practice. Now, sometimes when you're in a place where there's a lot of people and there's a lot of sound and all this is going around you, that is really hard to do. Like there's a trick that you don't really get it. You can't really concentrate on one thing. So one sort of practice I would like to put forward is, let's say we first try it when we're alone, or there's nobody around, there's no sound around. So we try it when it's in that condition, but then it also really fast. You can also do it when there's so many people around you and you're at your workplace, or you're studying in school, or whichever condition. Yeah. So one thing, if we could have one thought, like just have one thought, maybe say it 5 times. Yeah. Maybe even though it's just like hello, hello, hello. And just when you're saying the thought, when the thought is being said, don't say it with your mouth, but just in your mind. So when the thought is being said, what you do is you listen to the thought while it's happening. So there are 2 perspectives here. There's the thought happening and you listening to the thought. So when you're able to listen to that thought, like hello, 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 now you realize that there are 2 in your mind, there are 2 perspectives. One is saying out the thought, one is creating the thought, one is just listening to the thought. And it actually happens at the same time. It's not different times, it's like at the same time. So when you're listening to the thought, now we need to like have a stable ground. Now the stable ground there is not the perspective that creates the thought, but a more stable ground will be to stand where you're just listening to the thought that is being created. Now, if you do it, like if you can practice it, and in practice, you can practice it right now and then even afterwards, what you need to do in practice basically is you need to attach it to something that you do every day. So maybe if you take a bath, like we take a bath every day, maybe when you're drinking water, because you drink water several times a day, when you're eating food. So you need to attach it to something that you do every day. When you attach it to something that you do every day, you need to attach it to it, but then there will be a time, like even in a month or 1.5 months, when you do, like when you eat or whatever you've attached it to, when you eat or when you drink or when you have a bath, you will not have to remember, but you are reminded by doing that activity that, oh, I have to practice. So 2 perspectives, practice and attach it to something we do every day. And then so in that practice whereby you're listening to your own voice, your own thoughts. Now you can even listen to something outside as well, like maybe something that's pleasant like a flute, or even other people talking. Now you listen to them. When you're listening to them, you see that the one that is listening is not going anywhere, he's not having any thought, he's just listening. So when you get that, and you can see that chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadrita. So the chanchal part, the mind that is moving everywhere, it's the one that's creating the thoughts. Should I do this? Should I not do this? And it always has the duality of yes, no, or should I do it? Should I not do it? What should I do at this moment? But the one who is listening is always there and is not making any decisions at all. So even though you have thoughts, there is the one who is listening, not deciding anything, not judging anything, but just listening. So if you can get there, even in a short time, it can actually take you through a long path. And then vairagya. So 2 words here, virag, and then it comes together, vairagya. Now, we can translate it to detachment, yes, but you know, detachment normally has that feeling of like you're detached from the world, like you won't now be involved in the world, but that's not the case here. What they're saying is viraga, like rag has gone away. It doesn't mean that you've brought in like the love, the attachment to something has gone away. That's fine. It doesn't mean that you've brought in the concept of hating that sense attachment. You're not hating it. It's just that you are not attached to it any longer. Your senses are not going towards that. It's always you're in one place, you're the core, and then everything that happens at the peripheral, it's just there, just happening out there, and you're just not attached to it. It's not about going away from it, but it's just letting it be there, letting the whole world be there, like even going to a public place, but having everything there and just not being attached. Asanyatatmana yogo dushprapa iti me matihi vashyatmana tu yatata shakyo vaptumupayatah. So a person who can control, who cannot control, asanyatatmana. So yoga is very difficult for such a person. That is how I view it. That's what Krishna says. This is how I view it. That it's really hard for a person who cannot be in control. It's like saying that, oh, I have a very big kingdom, and if your subjects realize that you cannot even keep your own family in your control, then your subjects will just in a short time figure out that you're not really the one who can lead them towards a greater good. Because if you cannot even control a family of 5, then how can you control a whole kingdom? How can you control the whole country? So the same concept here. If you cannot even control your outside, which is really easy to control, how can you control your mind, which is really hard to control? So vashyatmana tu yatata. If a person has control over his peripheral, then it's really easy to control the mind as well. If it's really easy to control the body, for that person, it's really easy to control the mind. If a person can have, you see, the concept here is you cannot do yoga when you're in such a place, such a condition, or with such people who are not doing yoga. It's really easy to do yoga when you're with such people that they will help you in that path. They will take you towards it. You're with such people who are also doing yoga. So staying with them also brings something to you, that maybe they have some concepts that help you in your path as well. And then you can share with them and you can go towards getting to the center together. Thank you.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. David, give me just a second. Let me unmute. David, if you could go ahead and read a translation, please. And then I will proceed to Nyaneshwar. Go ahead, David.
Certainly. So this is from BhagavadGita.org. So Arjuna said, "O Krishna, in the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness by a quality of vision as described by you, I do not perceive a permanent solution due to the mind's flickering nature. O Krishna, the flickering mind is certainly turbulent, strong, and obstinate. I think that subduing the mind is more difficult than the wind. Lord Krishna said, O mighty armed one, undoubtedly the mind is fickle and difficult to master, but it can be controlled by diligent practice. O Arjuna, and detachment from sense enjoyment.
Thank you.
But this,
Is that it?
there's one more, three
Oh,
things.
go ahead.
But the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness practiced by one with uncontrolled mind is difficult to obtain. Thus, it is my opinion that in the endeavor, controlling the mind is the practical and appropriate means of achievement.
Thank you, David. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to read from Jnaneshwari. Yesterday, I read from a 19th century translation of Jnaneshwari. Today, what I'm going to try is there is this beautiful version of Jnaneshwari where somebody has taken real Jnaneshwari, the original Jnaneshwari, and just replaced the words which are no longer in use with words that are currently in use, and has maintained the verse structure of Jnaneshwar. So I'm going to, again, this is live translation or live interpretation. I'm going to read out the Marathi line, and I'm going to try to tell you what I understand it means, okay? And once I'm done with that, I'm going to open it up for comments from people who are really familiar with Bhagavad Gita, and then we will go to questions, okay? Magamane to Arjuna, Deva tutsa sanga samazavuna, maze kahe chanchalamana, kadhi shanta hoi. Now, Arjun says to Krishna, please explain to me, when and how will my restless and playful mind become calm? There is a word chanchal. It's a beautiful word. It is restless, but it's like chanchal. You call a child, a young child, chanchal, one who is moving all the time. So it is restless and playful. It is moving all over the place. Now he starts to describe the nature of the mind. Okay, you can see how Jnaneshwar expands on Gita. He mana kaise kevade pahuzata tena sapade eravi trailokya hi thokade bhatakanyatayam. What he's saying is that how big is this mind? You look for it everywhere and you can't find it. And even the entire universe is too small for it to wander. It keeps wandering. Manuna he kaise ghadela, makada ka samadhi lagela, ka chupa manata chupa rahila, mana kadhi. So how can this happen? How can a monkey achieve enlightenment? How will the mind remain quiet by just shouting, shut up to it? Now he's describing the power of the mind. Je buddhi sa jinkate, ni nishchayasi marate, dhairyasi paha ghabaravate, he mana devam. This mind defeats the intelligence. It kills determination. and it scares away courage. He continues, Je viveka bhulavate, santoshachi vatalavate, baisaletari hindavate, dahi disha. It says, the mind seduces moralness. It completely destroys joy. And even if you make it sit down, it keeps dragging you in 10 different directions. He continues, Nirodhata je usarate, ni sanyama karuzata bahakate, aise bhayankara manate, badale lakakadhi. He says, even when if you try to control it, it actually jumps up. And if you try to restrict it, it expands. Such terrible is the mind. And how can it possibly change? Aise mana nishchal hone, ani jnanate prakatane, nahi sabate ghadane kadhi deva. He says, this kind of a mind, for it to become steady and for this knowledge of self to arise in such a mind can never be possible. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Now this is what you can see, how beautifully Naneshwar describes and how much in detail, how many different aspects of the mind he's putting on the table. And he does that all the time. For any thought, like saying that mind is restless, he will expand it to saying, what are the various ways in which mind is restless? Okay. Now, Krishna responds, Magamanala Bhagavanta Satyasa Asetu Sangata He Manahota Shanta Nahi Sope. Says, now Krishna says that you are saying the truth. For mind to become steady is not easy at all. Now he's describing what kind of things you need to do. Panavairagya se phatakalavata ni abhyasa se kumpana ghalata dharane se kulupalavata te sthir hoi. By putting the door of non-attachment and by putting a fence of disciplined practice and by using the lock of concentration, it slowly becomes steady. Now he describes the nature of the mind and how you can use the nature of the mind in this process. Manasi jachi godi tikade sate odhi olakhu nahi manachi nadi lawave varnam. Whatever it is that the mind finds sweet, that is where it naturally moves. Knowing this nature of the mind, you should train it accordingly, using this nature of the mind. Now he says, look, this is not possible for everybody. Jaya Zaya mani nase virakti, te sthira na ho shakati, te the samadhiti prakatesana. What he's saying is that wherever there is no non-attachment, the mind can't possibly become steady, and you cannot achieve the self-knowledge in that case. Yamani yamana palane, mani vairagya nasane, vishayi asakta asane, durdaivatsa arjuna. What he's saying is that if you do not practice, if you do not practice proper morality, if you do not have non-attachment, if you are attached to your senses, then it's an unfortunate situation, Arjun. Maga aise te mana, sthira kaise te hoina, ani magate te atmanyana, prakatela kaise. So if the mind is like that, how can it become steady? And if it doesn't become steady, how can self-knowledge be produced in such a mind? That's not possible. So he's in detail saying that if a mind remains in that state that Arjun was describing, then indeed self-knowledge is not possible. He started by saying that Arjun is basically right. There are some ways in which you can train. You can learn to understand the nature of the mind and work with it to train it. But if your mind is not trained that way, and if it is going all over the place, then you're not going to be able, such a person is not going to be able to achieve self-knowledge. Now he starts to say what should be done. Manuna manasa nigraha karane, taisa upayato yojane, tetsa abhyasa se arambhane, zana arjuna. What he's saying is that therefore it is necessary to be determined and make a decision to look for all the means and plan for all the means of training your mind and start the discipline of practice. Shabdatitaya yoga. No, wait a minute. Skipped a line. Hey yoga sadhana jituke, te nahi sabal latike, paritalamari ne thake sarva sadhyam. So this practice of yoga that I'm describing to you is not an easy one. But if you have a strong desire for it, everything is possible. Shabdatitaya yoga se bada, mana aso kitihi chapala, prapta hone parabrahma sakala, ashakya nahi. The words that I'm telling you about yoga are very powerful. No matter how fast the mind is, to secure Brahma, to make your Atma same as Brahma, is not impossible. That's what Krishna says. Now Arjun responds to that. Magamhane Arjuna, Deva Satya Tuze Bolana, He Ashtangi Sadhana, Alaukika Deva. Now Arjun says, you're right. This multi-pronged method of practicing yoga is truly wonderful. Ya yoga chi khabar baat navato sami zanata bhanuna manasi hoto samazata chanchala deva. I did not know about yoga, these methods. That is why I have always thought of the mind as being restless by its nature. Ananta janma nantara ha yoga az samazala navatats kadi aikala yoga amhi. So after many, many lives, for the first time, I'm listening to yoga, this powerful method of dealing with the mind. I had never heard of this before. So that is what Arjun says in response. All right, now I'm going to call on people who are very familiar with Bhagavad Gita to comment. We're going to start with William, and then I'm going to open it up for others. William, what do you think about this section from 33 to 36?
I think it's crucial. This is a very important part because most of us identify with the mind processes instead of the awareness that knows what the mind is doing, that knows that the mind is like the wind or a flickering flame. Who knows that? I do, right? Each one of us knows when the mind is being like a horse without a bridle, running crazy in the field, which is natural for a horse to do, and it's natural for the mind to do. The mind, we don't know what our next thought is going to be. Does any one of us know that? Let me just put that out there as a hypothetical question. You think about it, each and one of you.
Thank you.
So
please go on. Please go on.
no, just one other thing. There was a neuroscientist about 2007. I think his name is LeBay. He did a
Let's
study.
not go away from the text, William. Let's just
yes,
keep on the text.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so anyway, yes, to keep on that. So what I say is give up the mind as that detachment and keep yourself in the awareness that knows what the mind is doing.
Thank
Just
you.
like we know what the eyes are seeing, the ears are hearing, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, William.
Thank you.
All right, folks, go ahead and type an exclamation mark to now talk about your reaction to this 33 to 36. You can either comment on the text itself or anything that Yogeshwar or I talked about. What do you think of the nature of the mind? What do you think about the restless nature of the mind? What do you think about the general solution that Krishna is offering to the dynamic nature of the mind? So go ahead and type exclamation mark if you would like to speak, or you can raise your hand in Zoom. I'm going to give a few seconds Go ahead, don't be shy. Go ahead and comment what you got from things so far. We'll start with Ambika, followed by Elena.
So I can be very focused when I'm writing and considering what I need to say. But there are times when my mind just pulls me in different directions. But I also wonder, I don't know if that is the mind, because there is a mind that you manage, which is very clear. But there are other things that come in that pull you, and I'm not sure that those are the mind, even though we see it all as the mind. But I think the mind is something which you can manage. It's here. And when we get out of that, then we are willingly pulled in all directions. And that is what can also be weakening. You know, it's tiring to be pulled. And maybe there's a time for that to happen when you're kind of considering things. But that's where the weakness, I feel, comes in. But I'd like to say, so when I'm writing, it's great because then I can be immersed, you know, or I'm making art or something. But I'd like to say one little thing about his phrasing in verse 35. He says, no doubt, O Mahabahu. So he appears to Arjuna as this great being. And the next thing, O Konteya, the sun, you know, he brings in the sun. So I like how the weave of sentiment endears us to the different qualities of that. And in 36, when he says the self-controlled person, this is not difficult. And then, but self-mastering, it's almost like following each other with self-mastery and self-control. One needs this to get that, and so on. I just thought that was interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambika. Yogeshwar, would you like to comment on the mind distracting internally and external things distracting?
Yes, so there are two things here. So one is, even in the Yoga Sutra, it is there that there is the mind that we have created within ourselves. It is in response to the stimuli from outside, yes, but there is one that we have created by ourselves, and it is there. Like Ambika was describing it, like it's this mind that is with us, and we feel that we have a connection with it, and then there are other things that are pulling it in other directions. So that is the mind we have created by ourselves, but the other aspects are not out of the mind. They are part of the mind. It's just that you do not identify with them. They pull you because you do not identify with them, and you feel that they are from outside stimuli, or that they are not you. You don't identify with them, so you feel they're outside. But even the one that you identify with is sort of like, it is the mind as well. And even the outside, the things that you feel that are outside, are also your mind. There are also situations whereby there may be stimuli from outside, but you are not disturbed. Yeah, and there may be stimuli from outside and you are disturbed. So the disturbance that is happening is the important thing, whether there's stimuli or not outside. Disturbance of the mind, whether it is how you want it or it is going out of control.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is going to be Elena, followed by Evanique. Elena, go ahead.
It's actually one of the greatest parts of Gita, but Gita has a lot of, but this is just some of the essence. It's like a practical guide that, to me, truly, because that is that, like how to, and therefore my question is, so I'll just expand on the how to. So the detachment and not being attached. So if we go there, it's like there's one of the practical techniques is just to be emotionally immersed in the life, what life is, and at the same time being able to step outside the character. And again, it's, to me, I'm just practicing it, and very often I'm not present. And so I know that I have to be like that, but I'm not like that. So does anyone have any advice and could go into that particular aspect?
Sure. I mean,
Thank you
we're
so
going.
much.
Yeah, we're going to be dealing with this in many, many different ways. Yogeshwar, if you want to talk very briefly, please go ahead.
Yeah, so about, I wouldn't call it detachment, but non-attachment. Yeah? So you're not attached to anything. It's not that you do not like something, it's just that you're not attached to it. Now, one aspect is that, we normally want to look at the good things in our life only, and we leave out what we feel is bad for us, that is not good for us. We normally try to leave it out of our awareness. We want it like, oh, it should not be there. But vairagya is a state of condition where you actually welcome anything that comes in. You're not attached, so you're not detached as well. You do not like something, so it's not that you do not like something. Both you accept. And the point of truth is that, because truth doesn't have a good or bad, it is just there. And what vairagya does is, you get the ability to accept the bad as well. Like what you feel is bad, it's not bad necessarily, but the bad is how you feel it, or the attachment is how you feel towards an object. So all that is your feeling. Now, when that does not come in the way of the truth, because the truth is as it is, not good, not bad, nor attached, nor detached. It's just there. So how we go towards the truth is vairagya. Without saying, is it good or bad? It is just the truth. So you accept it.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. I want to add one thing. What we are trying to do here in the study of Gita is to step way back and look at all the tools that are available to us. What will happen is that each of us will have some practices that we already have. Okay, and we can get some feedback on those, but use this opportunity to step back, because what Gita offers, as you can see, even in the beginning here, what is offered is a whole range of practices at all kinds of levels. And take time to kind of familiarize yourself with the entire palette of things that are available, that are possible for you. And then slowly learn what is going to be useful to you. So please be patient. I really appreciate that, everybody wants to make progress, which is all of us want to do that. But I think that, mind is complex enough that quick solutions are not going to produce, they will actually produce some results. But what is possible with this kind of comprehensive study, which Gita offers, is much larger. So do ask specific questions, but keep your mind open for completely out of the box ways of dealing with the mind. Next up is going to be Evanik.
Yeah, what I got from this so far is the idea of practice, that it just takes practice, which really is a comforting thing, because you're not supposed to get it right away. And realizing that I haven't really been practicing this, is why that my mind is like a wild horse, right? Like while it's going all over the place. And I like the idea of creating the thought, listening to the thought and hearing the thought. And it's all happening at the same time. And just knowing that that's what's going on really does help in the practice of controlling the mind and focusing. Talking about attached to any, to attach a mantra or a word to an action is a really practical way to do that. And like drinking water and thinking of a word. I think just small practices like that make this very accessible and very practical. So just wanted to thank you both for that.
Thank you. I want to elaborate on that. Yogeshwar, I really found your example very useful. The first thing that I found useful is to speak and listen. So you speak in your mind and you listen. So you have these two different perspectives, and you can see that the listening perspective is more fundamental. It is like taking in, being aware of existence itself, and you being one of the parts of it. It also separates your, whatever it is that you are doing, whatever it is that your mind is doing, from seeing what the mind is doing. So that, I think, separation is very, very, very profound point. And I love the idea of attaching it to everyday things. And the more things that you can attach to, it is really beautiful, like drinking water or taking a bath or even breathing. It's like you will notice that something simple like, okay, in certain situation, you just take a deep breath. If you did that, it's a way of resetting. It is a way of reminding you. It is a way of building the practice. So I thought that was excellent. All right, let's go ahead to now from, we went up to 36. So we'll do from 37 to 47. So Ambika, if you could go ahead and read, please.
37 to 47.
Yep. And then David, I'm going to call on you to read next. Go ahead, Ambika.
Arjuna said, "Whither goes he? To what cause or movement, O Krishna, who, having faith but unable to strive, his mind having deviated from yoga, fails to obtain accomplishment in yoga? Is it not perhaps, O great armed, that he, unsteadfast in the path of Brahman, bewildered, both ways destitute, missing the here as well as the hereafter, perishes like a dispersed cloud? O Krishna, thou art capable of completely tearing away this doubt of mine. Other than thee, there is none available who could dispel this doubt." The Blessed Lord said, "Neither here nor hereafter, O Partha, is there for him any perdition. None whatsoever practices good, O dear, goes to an evil state. Having attained to the worlds of the righteous, and having dwelt there for innumerable years, the yoga devolved finds a birth in the house of the wise and the blessed. Or else he may come into being in the family of wise yogins. Rare indeed is the birth of this kind to obtain in this world. There, O Kurunandana, Arjuna, he recovers the buddhi disposition of his previous birth, and with that he endeavors again for perfection. By virtue of the practice of the past, he is even carried on irresistibly. Even as a seeker of yoga knowledge, he crosses over the Shabda Brahman, scriptural word. The assiduous yogin, purified from sin, earnestly striving, having perfected himself through many lives, reaches thence the supreme state. The yogin is greater than the doers of ascesis, greater even than the men of knowledge, greater also than the men of works. Become therefore the yogin, O Arjuna. Even of all yogins, he who, with all his inner self given up to me, has love for me and faith, him I hold to be the most united with me in yoga.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambika. Next up is David. David, if you could read.
Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the fate of the unsuccessful transcendentalist engaged with faith in the science if uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness, but whose mind deviates, failing to achieve perfection in the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness? O mighty armed one, bewildered on the path to the ultimate truth, without any refuge, deviated from both yoga and meditation, is it not that one is ruined like a fragmented cloud? O Krishna, this doubt of mine, I'm requesting you to completely dispel. Other than you, the remover of this doubt is not to be found. Lord Krishna said, O Arjuna, there never exists destruction from one in this life, nor in the next life, since, dear friend, anyone who is engaged in virtuous acts never comes to evil. After achieving the planets of those who performed pious activities, one who has fallen from the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness, after residing there for many, many years, takes birth in a family of the pious and the prosperous. Otherwise, one surely takes birth in a family endowed with wisdom and the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness. Certainly, such a birth as this is very rare in this world. O Arjuna, in this way, the revival of spiritual intelligence is regained that was practiced in a previous life. Thereafter, he endeavors once again for perfection. Because of the strength of the previous practice, one is irresistibly attracted. Certainly, even the inquisitive in the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness surpasses the ritualistic principles for fruitive actions in the Vedas. One perfected in the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness, diligently endeavoring by rigid practice, purified of worldly attachment, achieves the perfection of many, many lifetimes and attains the supreme goal. One perfecting the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness is considered superior to the performers of asceticism and is superior to the followers of impersonal knowledge. When perfected in the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness, also superior to the fruitive workers. Therefore, O Arjuna, just become one perfected in the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness. Of all these perfecting the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness, one who is full faith is always thinking of me within, deeply dedicated to me. Rendering devotional service to me is the most superior of all.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Yogeshwar, please go ahead.
Arjuna uvacha ayati shraddhayopeto yogachalitamanasah aprapya yoga sansiddhim kam gatim Krishna gacchati. So Arjuna is asking, what if I start doing yoga? And in the middle, because I I really want to do it right now. But in the middle, I know my mind. And in the middle, it may happen that I deviate from the path of yoga and I'm lured into the worldly sense attachments. So what will happen then? What happens to such a yogi when he starts off on the path of yoga and then deviates from it? Aprapya yoga sansiddhim kam gatim Krishna gacchati. So obviously I know he won't get the ultimate Brahma. He won't get there. But where does he go? And how can he come back to the path of yoga? Kachinno bhaya vibhrashtas chinna brahmiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanpati. So what Arjun wants to know here is basically, is it that if I start and stop halfway, yeah, is it that I have to start all over again? Because the question here is, Kachino bhaya vibrashta, chinna brahmiva nashyati. Because when the clouds come up and sometimes when there's a lot of wind, all the clouds just scatter around and they never actually meet again. So everything is just scattered and clouds just go away. Yeah, there are no clouds in the sky again. So if such a wind of sense attachment comes on my way, will all that I've done on the path of yoga, will it just be scattered away and I will never be able to get it again? Is it such, or is it something else? So if I get off the path of yoga in the middle, because right now I feel like doing it, but in the middle I know that I may get off it. Now what will happen to all I've done towards the middle, towards Brahma, and I've only reached the middle? Etanme sanshayam Krishna chetumarhasya sheshatah twadanya sanshayasya chetana upapadyate. So such a doubt is there in my mind. You are the only one who can dissolve that doubt, who can take away that doubt from inside me. Twadanya sanshayasya cheta na upapadyate. So apart from you, there's no one else who can take this kind of a doubt out of me, or who can dissolve such a doubt which is inside me. Now, one thing Arjun really knows is Krishna has his mind right and he knows the whole path. Now, a person who knows the whole path from the start to the end, and you can see that somebody has reached the end, or he's almost about to reach the end. So you know he's gone way ahead of you. And now such a person, you can tell him that, oh, you know the way. So apart from you, I don't know whom I can trust to show me the way and to tell me the roadblocks in the way and what can take me off the road, and what if I get off the road, how I can get back and where I have to start from again. Do I have to start all over again, or will I just start from where I left? And the person who has gone all through the road is the one who can tell you how the road is. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Parthanaiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kaschid Durghatim Tata Gacchati. So one thing is, even though it is in the worldly pleasures, or it's on the road of yoga, on both roads, there is no place whereby all that you've done is just taken away. No, it doesn't scatter around. It stays with you. And this is the concept of karma that we can talk about. Like if we do karma, even though it's in towards the world, or it's not towards Brahma, but that karma becomes part of you in a way. It becomes your swabha, it stays with you. So even though it is on the path of yoga, it will stay with you. Or even though it's in the path of the samsara or worldly pleasures, it will stay with you. An example is if you like doing something, like if you get attached to something, that attachment, even though you've not had it for, like probably we may have been attached to something that we like eating, yeah, and we don't get it for like 5-10 years, but after we get it after 10 years, we remember all those attachments and we really like it again. It's not that the likeness cutters away. So the same on the path of yoga. When you are on the path of yoga and you get deviated in the middle, what happens is you remain with that, um, all that, all that that will take you to the path of yoga. You remain with all that karma within you. So nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgati tata gacchati. So a person who wishes his own wellness, or a person who wishes to get to Brahma, to unite with Brahma, whatever he does on the way, there is no way that he can totally deviate and actually be on the wrong path. He will never get to the wrong path. He may deviate a bit, but he'll never go to the wrong path. Prapya punya kritam lokan nushitva shaswati samah suchinam shrimatam ye yoga brashto vijayate. So now in Indian philosophy, the concept of karma and the concept of rebirth is shown here, whereby that person who has gotten somewhere, has done some karma, even towards Brahma or towards samsara, he will get that type of rebirth. He'll get such a type of rebirth. So punya kritam loka. So he will get to such good places whereby he can actually maybe do yoga in a better way, because you know, if you're below a certain level of income, you're always thinking about what to eat the next day, or you know, all those thoughts are always in your mind. You cannot have a steady thought. So you need to get to such a place or such a bliss. Like for example, if you go to some countries, there's always a place whereby, oh, I know that my medical will be covered, my education will be covered for such and such a time. So I don't need to worry about it. So when you're not worried about it, you actually get the time, you get the comfort of doing yoga. And in the next birth, what happens is you get to such, you get birth in such a place, or to such parents who, in such a house whereby they are, in a way, in actions, in swadharma, they are clean, they're systematic, they're moral in such a way. So two things here about rebirth, yeah. One is that the way rebirth is taught us in India. One point is that we know the scientific part about the genetics and how the DNA chromosomes are transferred from the parents to the child. Now, in Indian philosophy, even that is not by chance. What happens is one who has done such karma, such action, to get to such a perfect match towards those types of parents will get there. And according to Indian philosophy, that's the reason why even two brothers or two people who are brought up in the same home or have all the same conditions are totally different. It's because of the karma. It's because of your past lives, the karma that you've done in your past life. and all that you've done there. So that's why we have different kinds of people. And the matching of the parents and you yourself and all that, it's all done in a way. When I die, I grip to some thoughts. There are some thoughts that I'll have at the time of dying. So what is viewed as in the Indian thought is cycle. It's never linear. History is never linear in Indian philosophy. It's always a cycle. So when I end at a point, I start from the same point in the next birth. Athava yoginameva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabhataram loke janma yadidrisham. So there's also a chance that such a person gets a rebirth in two parents who are on the path of uniting towards Brahma. Not only morally right, or they have the necessary opportunities to get yoga, but such a place or such a family whereby yoga is practiced. So he also gets that, he may get that chance. And such a rebirth is really highly valued, because to get such a condition, to get such a situation, to get such parents who help you towards the path of liberation, because even like we feel very honored when we get some friends who take us to a higher place. And why wouldn't we feel high of ourselves in a way, not pride, but high of ourselves in a way that we get such good parents, morally right, and they're also towards the path of liberation. They're also seeking their own and liberation for the children as well. Tatratam buddhi sanyogam labhate paurvadehikam yatate chatato bhuya sansiddho kurunandana. So what happens is, because of your karma, you remember all that. Buddhi sanyogam means that you remember what all you've done in a past life. In this, the remembering doesn't necessarily mean that you remember every activity that you did in the past life, but in an example, you'll be, from your heart, you'll feel like doing it. That is the remembrance of your past life, because sometimes you see some things for the first time and you really get attached to it. There is some reason behind it. Yeah? And according to Indian philosophy, it's your previous births whereby you have been doing that, and now you attach to it with your karma. So now you can do it better in this life. So even on the path of liberation, you stopped in the middle. Now you're attracted to the path of liberation. You're attracted to yoga. You will just get onto it where you left it. You will not have to start with the nitty-gritties of yoga. You will get there. We also see some people in our lives whereby they know more about a subject, yet they've only done it maybe 1 or 2 years. And yet, if we have been doing it for the past 10 years, we have not gotten that much. Purvabhyasena tenaiva riyate hyavashopisa jigyasurapi yogasya shabda brahmati vartate. So because of his previous karma, his previous actions, and his previous attachment towards the path of yoga, he avasha means it's not in his control that he's attracted towards the path of yoga. He's automatically attracted to it. And a person who just wants to know yoga, jigyasurapi yoga says, a person who only wants to know yoga, that person will shabda brahmati vartate. He will go even forward. You'll even move faster. Even going over the words said in any Shastra or the words said in the Veda, you'll go forward and actually be able to know the path of yoga, straightforward. Now, in Indian philosophy, there are two things. One is the word of the scriptures and your experience, your own experience. Even in the Upanishads, there are two types of knowledge. One knowledge is just of the words and concepts. Another knowledge is you actually experiencing the concepts, you experiencing the words. So when they say Shabda Brahmati Vartate here, it's you do not only dwell on the words said in the scriptures, you actually experience it. You experience the Brahma, you experience the oneness with Brahma. Prayatnadyatamaanastu yogi shanchuddha kilbisha aneka janma sansiddhas tato yati param gatim. So because he has done so much with his previous lives and even in this life, he will have all that is obstructing, all the roadblocks on the path of yoga. They will all be removed. And when they are removed, aneka janma sansiddhas, for so many births and rebirths, he has been on the path of yoga. And then you realize that at one point in time, you get there, you experience it all. It's not just words, but you experience it. Tato yati param gati. He gets to the par gati. Now, gati, in a way, we think of it as movement, yeah. But when they say param gati, it is the ultimate movement. It is the ultimate movement whereby there is so much. There's so much staying in one place. You're not even moving. It's the ultimate destination, to say. Yeah. After that, you'll not have to do any movement. Tapasvibhyo dhiko yogi jnanibhyopi matodhikah karmibhyaschadhiko yogi tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. So a person who is an ascetic, even a yogi is more than that person. A person who knows each and every detail, or he can know what the scriptures are saying. He can decipher each and every word, the concepts within the scriptures. Even that person, a yogi is more than that person. A person who is doing actions in the world, or is trying to do the good actions in the world. Even that person, a yogi is more than that person. Why? Because he has the experience. He has the experience of the scriptures, not just the words. He has the experience of righteous action, not just the action. He has the experience of tapa, not just starting it, but he has experienced it all. Yogi namapi sarvesham madgatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mata. So out of all those, the person who always dwells within me, who with all his heart is coming towards me, that person is highly valued by me. And I see him as my own self. Yukta tamo mata. So in even the 7th chapter, he will say, a person who is there is my Atma. Yeah. So I feel that he's so one with me, yeah, that I can call him my Atma. I can call him myself. So that is the stage of experience when life gets to such an experience, you get to such a step that all that you've known until then is just dissolved.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Now, the commentary I have on Naneshwar is just on the last verse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everybody a chance to comment on all of this, and then I will read out the commentary by Dhaneshwar. So go ahead and type exclamation mark first for any thoughts on this entire section. And then we will go to questions. So go ahead and type exclamation mark if you would like to comment on what you got from this section. I just want to say one thing, that the Indian thought is very cyclical, and these cycles apply in many ways. The basic idea is that if you do something good, the effects of that are going to stay with you. You know that that is true. That is the nature of the mind itself, that if you have a good habit, if you create a good habit, no matter what you do afterwards, suppose you fall off from the habit, that remains with you. So there is that idea that any good work that you do, results of that remain with you, and you will benefit from it going forward. Go ahead and type exclamation mark if you would like to comment on any of these. If there is no comment, then go ahead and type exclamation mark for any questions. We'll start with David. David, go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I had a question about the issues of rebirth, and comment in there. I mean, there's, the wonderful explanation from Yogeshwar about parents and a child inheriting the karma. And I understand about the karma in the soul passing on to the next person, but I was curious, why should a child, a so-called innocent child, be burdened with the karma from a past life? You can understand why a person who's lived a life and done good or done bad should have, that soul should pass it on, but why should this child, that comes in the world sort of pure, without choosing it? I mean, I guess you could, maybe that is part of it, choosing it, but why should that child, that baby, that infant, inherit that karma?
That's a very deep question, David, because that is like the idea of, it's very different ideas, they come from very different sources, philosophical sources, religious sources. So I don't know how, if Yogeshwar wants to deal with it, but Yogeshwar, you're welcome to deal with it if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I will just, like, in a way that I may not really answer your question, but I will just try in a way that, a child is already burdened by the karma, whereby his parents have their genetic code, they have their habits, their DNA, and they will pass that to the child. That you cannot deviate from that. So that will obviously happen. Yeah. Now, what is happening here is the previous life, how the karma that you did, and now the combination of the DNA that the child is getting now, that matches. So that match is what you get according to your previous life. Now, there's no getting away from the DNA of your parents. That will come. Like if your parents are diabetic and you get from birth, you get diabetes. Yeah, you get the DNA of diabetes. That is inevitable. It has to happen. So that burden is always there, even in science.
Thank you. I mean, the rebirth question is a very tough question to answer. I mean, the only thing I would say is that, all children, they have both the nature part, which is the DNA part. They also have the nurture part. The parents are what they are, and they are going to nurture the child the way they are going to nurture the child. And that is something that, for better and for worse, each child, the context is different. And Gita's philosophy, the Indian philosophy, holds that those things are shaped by the past works, good works, or lack thereof, of souls. That's Gita's view. Next up is going to be Ambika, Evanik, and Justin. Ambika.
So this is fascinating, and I have a question. When you talk about come to the same place, what came to me in my mind was, a circle, and then of course Shrikant said cyclical and stuff, but a circle, which is your pita, where you sit and do your meditation. I know when I have that little cushion, every time I sit down, it just settles. And I've been neglecting myself for some time. But could that also be part of what you meant? You come to the place where you have been accumulating, because your cushions accumulate the energy wherever you sit. So I was just wondering if that was also akin to what you were talking about. When you come to me, not only to the spirit or to the Lord, but also the place where you sit to perform these works.
Yogeshwar, you want to answer?
Your mind gets trained in a way whereby, let's say, you're always attaching a place to a kind of emotions or a kind of thoughts. Like if you've gone with your parents when you're very young and you always used to go to this garden, yeah, whereby you used to play with them and have a nice time. Now, whenever you go to that garden, you'll have those nice emotions. They'll all come back to you. It's like that cyclical process that we're talking about. Not necessarily are we talking about energies, but your mind is getting back to those emotions and all those thoughts because it has a place. It's associating the place with those emotions and those thoughts. Whenever you get to that place, you actually have them again.
Thank you. So I want to elaborate a little on the cyclical nature. Now, this is not Gita, but I think this is just life, that life has that cyclical nature. So if you do something right, like if you do exercise, your body is going to be able to do more things. If you keep your surroundings nice, that is going to impact your mood the next time. So both in space, if you treat people right, the human relations you're going to have in the future are going to be better. If you treat people worse, badly, that is going to have negative impact for you in the next cycle. So the cyclical nature, I think, is core to life itself. And that is one thing that is taught, that is kind of built into the Indian way of thinking. When you look at, Krishna's advice to Arjun, what he's saying is that as you progress on this path, again and again, he will keep saying, look, you don't have to get there. You can't get there in one step. You can't get there right away. But that doesn't mean you can't get there. If you take the right path, things are going to become easier for you. More things will open up as you keep doing more things. So this idea of cycles, and you keep making progress in cycles, is very deep in the Indian thought. Next up is Evanik, followed by Justin. Evanik.
So Yogeshwar mentioned experiencing the Brahma. I was just wondering if you could expand a little more on that concept.
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Experiencing Brahma. So the point there is, first, you know that I am not the ego. Using practice and Vairagya, both of them, you realize that I am not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the ego, I'm not the pride that I have been associating myself with. Now, your identity is not lost. You are still something. Yeah? And the concept of the drop of water immersing into the ocean. So You are a drop of water, you'll still have an identity. Now you'll drop into that ocean, the ocean of Brahma, and you'll realize that you're one with Brahma. So realizing Brahma is the concept of becoming one with Brahma, becoming one with all creation. You just have that experience of becoming one, Advaita.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. And Evanik, that is basically just the deepest question in Gita. And the whole Gita is about that, of how with the Tad Twamasi, that Tad means that. Twam means you, your Atma, Asi. So being with the Brahma is all, that is the core thing that you're trying to do in all your practice. So we will come at this in multiple ways as we keep going through many things. And that is always the background. And that is always the question, the biggest thing that you're trying to do. Next up is Justin. Justin, go ahead.
Yes. So I was a bit confused, and please educate me if I'm looking at this the wrong way. So if we are all one under the Brahma, but I mean individually, we have the rebirth of our past life. But doesn't that mean that like all our karmas are technically all of our karmas together in a sense? I don't know if you can understand what I'm trying to get at.
I'm not sure I get your question. Can you try to rephrase it in another way?
Right. So if we are all one under the Brahma per se, but individually we have the karma from our past life, I don't, how would we be all one in a sense?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I get it. Yogeshwar, you want to go ahead?
Until we have attached ourselves with our body or our pride, our mind, until that attachment, the identity towards the pride or the self does not go, yeah, you'll have all your karma with you. It will stay because you always have that wanting, that I want this and I want to do this, even though you're going to die, you still want to stay alive. So you want, the wants do not die until you get off the identity of your body. And until that happens, you do not experience the oneness with Brahma. So until you experience the oneness with Brahma, your karma do not die away. They stay with you. Your individual karma stay with you. Now, when you experience that oneness with Brahma, all your individual karma is dispersed of you. It's just scattered of you because you're not identified with it. You're not identified with the karma, so you can get off it. The main issue here is that we're identifying ourselves with our bodies, our karma. Like if I have done something good, I want people to acknowledge me that I've done the good. So you're wanting, it's always going to be there. And until that is there, and you're identifying yourself with the body, your karma will stay as yours. And you'll never become one with Brahma until that is get laid.
Wonderful. Excellent answer. I'm going to answer it, again, just to make sure that, let me put it in my own words. We start out as having separate identities. So we identify ourselves with our body, our ego, our emotions, our mind, our physical situation, our families, all of that. And in that sense, we are separate. We consider ourselves to be separate. And that is the starting point. What Gita is saying is that as you start understanding yourself, that means you start understanding the core of your being, you start to see that the core of your being is the same as core of other beings. And that's an achievement. And you don't start off there. So up until that point, so during this process, what happens is that you keep doing work, and all good work will move you forward. So you're carrying over, and you have the ego, you have a separate identity, and you're carrying on. Yet, even during this process, you have an Atma, you have the core of your being, which is the same in all living things. And that is the same with Brahma, which is the principle of the universe itself. Grasping that is an achievement that happens over a long period of practice. So you start as perceiving yourself as separate. It is the practice at the end of which Gita is saying that you will see the oneness in all things. The example of salt is where, you see yourself as a piece of salt, having a separate identity. And then in practice, what is happening is that you're dissolving yourself in the ocean of the Tao, or the universe, or the Brahma, or the nature of existence itself. And you realize that you are part of the ocean, and you see that everything else is a part of ocean too. That's how you get at oneness at the end of the practice. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about just the verse 47, because I really like Naneshwar's commentary. And it is so stunning that I have to give an introduction to it to make it easier. And the way I'm going to give an introduction to it is to tell you a story. And this is a story of Arjun and Krishna. In a very fundamental way, understanding the relationship between Arjuna and Krishna is the same as understanding the core of Gita. And the story I'm about to tell you is one of the best examples of it. We're talking about rebirth. And Vishnu has multiple avatars. Krishna is one of the avatars. Another of his avatars is called Nar Narayan, where Vishnu was born as a twin. Nar and Narayan, so they were twins. Nar means man, and Narayan means God. So imagine that twin, Nar and Narayan, man and God, as being twins. And they were, Arjun and Krishna were supposed to be reincarnations of Nar and Narayan. Okay, so imagine that Arjun and Krishna being twins. So the story goes that Nar and Narayan, what they did was that they did meditation on trying to understand their Atma and Brahma. And they were so good at it, and they became enormously powerful. The Lord Shiva wanted to demonstrate the power, wanted to show the world how powerful they are. So he threw the greatest weapon that he had at them, which is capable of destroying anything. And as it moved towards them, it just disintegrated. Indra, who is the king of the gods, became worried because he saw that they were getting so much power. So he said, I have to distract them from their concentration. So he sent a whole bunch of apsaras, which is the celestial nymphs, to distract them. And what Narayan did was that he took a flower and put it on his lap, and that transformed into Urvashi, which is most beautiful woman. And all the nymphs that had come were ashamed after looking at Urvashi, and they ran back to the heavens. Okay. And Indra himself saw Urvashi and chose her as the wife. So that's the second story. But the third story is the most interesting. There was an evil king, I forget his name. He did penance, he did his meditation, and he received as a boon these 1,000 kavach. Kavach are like armors, okay? And with the 1,000 armors, he was invincible. And he was an evil person, so he started troubling everybody. And he showed up at the place where Nar and Narayan were doing meditation. So all the people in that area ran to Nar and Narayan and said, he's destroying us. Please help. So Nar got up from his meditation and started fighting with this king. The king said, look, I have these invincible, armor. Why are you fighting? And I have 1,000 of those. Why are you fighting? You're going to die. But he fought. He fought really well. He managed to destroy one of his armors and fell dead. As soon as he fell dead, Narayan got up from his meditation, chanted a mantra, and right enough, Nar got up again because they shared the same soul. So God and man sharing the same soul. Now, Narayan obviously is much more stronger in fighting. So now Narayan starts to fight and Nar starts to do meditation. So again, see the interaction between Jnana and karma. They're doing what they need to do. They're taking the right action in the world. And the half of them is always focused on the core of their being, okay, in meditation. So Narayan fought. He would destroy one of the armors and fall dead. And Nar would recite a mantra and he would get up again and fight. And he kept doing that until it was down to the last of the armors. At that point, the evil guy ran away. And of course, Narayan came back and continued with the meditation. And this guy who ran away with this, he reincarnated as Karna, who is one of the figures in Mahabharata. So you can see in Mahabharata, you can see the meaning here. You're saying that Nar and Narayan, man and God, are the twins, which is an incarnation of Krishna himself. He's a reincarnation of Krishna. So they are two, but they are one. Okay. It is really profound idea. So let me go ahead and read the 47, the commentary on 47. So I'm going to read the 47 part, and then I'm going to read the transition where Naneshwar always explains what has happened so far and what is about to happen. Okay. Aga yogi zo maniche, to devansa devazaniche, ani sukha sarvasva maze, chaitanya to. It is saying is that a true yogi is God of the gods. So he is God to God. So Krishna regards him as his God. Okay. Yogi hoya, Ani sukha sarva samaje. So he is all of my joy. Okay, so this is what God is saying about man. Chaitanya to. Chaitanya to means he is my Atma. He is my spirit. So this is God. Krishna saying that such a person is my God. Jaya Sati Bhajana Bhazave, He Yoga Sadhana Je Aghave, Mite Te Michi Zahale Anubhave Akhandita. Now he's describing the nature of such a person. For such a person, the person loving, the object of love, and the love itself. So the object, the subject, and the verb, the action, all of that is united and is seen as Krishna himself or Brahma himself. So this unity of that. Maga Amachi Ji Prita, Ashiti Shabdatita, Shabdacha Tya Simeta Nayene Pritiche. So the love between us, between the God and the yogi. Now, understand, this is a reciprocal love. It's impossible to capture in words because it is beyond the limits of what words can do. If I have to give a metaphor to describe this relationship, says, Mi deha to atma. So that means I, the God, is the body, and the yogi is the soul, is the atma. So you see this, the idea of tattvam asi here, this profound identification of what shall I say? This idea of God not being up there and man being here, but the identity of the two. Now there is more about, he talks about further, but I want to just see if you have any comments or questions about this idea of the Nar Narayan, the relationship between man and God, because this is very different from the Western tradition. So any thoughts about that? Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question. Evanik.
I'm not sure if this is a thought or a question or both, but this idea of God being a twin with man, it actually does make sense in if you look at the Bible, and I think it's in Genesis where it's like the second creation story, where it says that God made man in his image and likeness, right? So if we are in his image and likeness, then we are,
Yes,
in a sense, a twin. So in that sense, I guess it kind of matches up, but I don't think most Western thought does that. I think most Western thought is, like you said, God is up here, man is here. But it also makes sense too, because if the Bible took place in the Middle East, right, then that's where it originated from. So I guess the question says common is that when did we as Westerners decide that God is up here and man is here, instead of the way the Bible puts it, that we are made in God's image and likeness? So we are kind of well, now that I say it that way, it does make sense because God is more of a creator, and this is kind of, and in Indian thought, it's kind of like it just happens that God and man are twins and have equal level, whereas God in Western religion is creating us.
Yeah, no, I really like your comments because it is like, for example, God so loved the world. So there is always that love in various places, that you're becoming children of God. You are, Jesus is the Son of God, and you are like that. There are places where it says you are gods, you are like gods, you're God-like. There is all kinds of places, in Bible like that. So it is definitely, there are places where it's like you are in the family of God. You're part of the family of God. That idea is there. But there is also at some point, somewhere, the emphasis of there being a distance. Here, if you look at it, it's like Krishna and Arjun, when they deal with each other, they deal with equals. Like here you look at the question that Arjun asked, which was the same question that you asked, by the way, yesterday. He was saying, look, this doesn't make sense. My mind is like this. So it's impossible what you're saying. Right? And he's not afraid to say that. It is not considered impious to say that. There is this lovingness that is there through, and there is a respect. One of my favorite parts in this, that Naneshwar puts in this number 6, is that Krishna getting worried that when Arjun becomes one with me, I'm going to lose a friend. What am I going to do? I'm going to lose my friend because he's going to become one. So there is that. And so there is, so I don't want to, it's difficult. I don't know the Bible enough. I don't know the interpretations. I don't know how things have changed over time. But all I'm saying is that in Gita, this Nar Narayan is an Arjuna and Krishna. The idea of Tattvamasi, that you are that you are Brahma, is a core idea of Gita. All right. Any other comments? Any other thoughts? You're welcome to do that. I want to add one more thing. Evanik, you had made a very good point yesterday about there being only one way. Jesus being the way. So in a sense, in Western thinking, one place which is very similar to the Indian way is the Greek mythology, where you have multiple gods, and these are gods, like there is a god of wisdom, there is a god of war, there is a god of love, and you have, you choose which ones to worship. Some of them are, your closest gods. Then these gods kind of, compete with one another in some ways, work with one another in other ways. So that idea of multiple ways is there in Greek mythology. And it is very similar. I mean, the kind of way of thinking that there are multiple ways is there in Greek thinking, Greek mythology, and similar to what is there in the Indian thought. So now I'm going to open it up for just any general comments or general final thoughts before we close up. So the plan next time is to now start with chapter 7. I want to tell you about Jnaneshwari. There are two things. There is a Jnaneshwari that is available on Kindle, which is far more detailed. That may be too much for many people. It's a good reference to have, but there is an Jnaneshwari that I've found that, thanks to Rupali, which is there available online. And it is far more briefer and it was done, I think, in 1950s. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not as detailed as the original Naneshwari, but it captures the gist of Naneshwar's point. And I have put it on the meetup page. So I invite you to, when you're reading the verses from Gita, to also read the verses from, those corresponding verses, corresponding commentary of Naneshwar that is there. I think you will get, I know you will get more, because I am getting much more. Because what Naneshwar is that he's a philosopher. He's not just trying to do a translation. He's saying that he wants to actually communicate the core ideas. And he's using everything he possibly can to do that, using the verse as just the starting point. He's dealing with the verse fully, but he's doing a lot more than that. And that is very, very useful. He is making connections. His language is beautiful. He uses a lot of metaphors. So I recommend that very, very highly. All right. So Yogeshwar, this was excellent. And Friday, we are going to do chapter 7, and we'll probably take 2. So we'll finish the chapter 7 on Friday and Saturday. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We will see you soon. Bye, everybody.